I never expected to find love in the most unlikely place, a humble cleaning lady. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low, casting long shadows in the dimly lit hotel hallways. I was lost, wandering between rooms, burdened by grief and unwanted memories. I felt heavy, like I was dragging chains. Each heartbeat echoed regret through my chest. Then there she was. Maria. A soft-spoken woman, always smiling despite her worn-out uniform. Her hands were calloused, but there was something delicate in the way she held her cleaning supplies. She moved quietly, like a shadow, hardly noticed by the bustling staff and guests. Yet, there was an air of mystery around her. It was almost magnetic that I learned her story piecemeal. She was a single mother scavenging for moments of joy in her chaotic life. Every word she shared felt like a glimpse into another world, a world of resilience threaded with pain. I found myself seeking her out. I needed to hear her laughter, to witness the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her little boy. The hotel was a world of upscale luxury, yet, in the corner, she was overlooked. I would watch her, my heart racing. How was it possible that someone so ordinary could stir such intense feeling within me? She wasn't just cleaning, she brought warmth to the cold, sterile walls of that place. I'd often linger, pretending to be lost in thought while stealing glances. Each time she caught my eye, a small part of me fluttered, exhilarated, terrified. But the mountain of my own troubles loomed large. I was shattered inside, grappling with loss and despair, yet she became the gentle reminder of hope that I desperately needed. I wanted to reach out, to tell her how her presence transformed my days, but every attempt slipped away like water through my fingers. Then came the whispers. Rumors about her past, shocking tales of betrayal, violence, and a man who'd once darkened her life. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. How could someone so resilient, so kind, have endured such darkness? Each rumor unsettled me, digging deeper into the raw pain I was already feeling. I led my life like a robot, but she awakened something deep within. I found myself wanting to know more, to break through the barriers she had put up around herself. But could I? Were her walls as formidable as they seemed? The tension cracked like a fragile egg when I noticed dark figures lurking at the edge of the hotel. They watched her with predatory eyes. My heart raced, a tight fist in my chest. What did they want? Why were they after Maria? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst, and I felt it an urgency to protect her, to shield her from whatever had come knocking at her door. In that moment, everything shifted. I couldn't just stand by, silently admiring her strength. My heart pounded, breath shaky. Could I help her? Could I untangle myself from my past long enough to reach her? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air was thick with unspoken words as I contemplated my next move. The figures outside felt menacing, like the shadows from my own past coming to reclaim what little brightness had found its way into my life. I could no longer stand idle as Maria carried her burdens alone, even if she seemed strong enough to fend for herself. The thought of her being hunted filled me with a raw urgency, igniting something within that I had thought extinguished. As soon as my shift ended, I stepped outside, braving the fading light of dusk. The tall, steel hotel loomed behind me, a fortress that suddenly felt claustrophobic. The figures were gone, but unease settled deep in my bones. I scanned the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of Maria. Perhaps I could trace her steps, find a way to offer assistance without startling her. I made my way to the alley often frequented by staff and delivery workers. There, amidst scattered rubbish and the faint scent of stale coffee, I spotted her. Maria stood with her back to me, her head bent slightly, as if she were deep in thought. The yellowing fluorescent light flickered, painting her in hues of melancholy and strength. I hesitated, the internal battle raging fiercely. Would approaching her be seen as intrusion or an act of kindness? Just then, she turned, sensing my presence. Our eyes met, and I felt an electric jolt, as if we had shared a quiet secret. "Hi," I said softly, stepping closer. "I saw you out here." She gave me an uncertain smile, one that barely reached her eyes. I needed a moment. "It gets heavy in there," she gestured toward the hotel. "How are you?" "I'm okay. Just trying to find my footing." My voice cracked, and I didn't want to delve into my struggles. "Are you alright? I saw some people earlier." Maria's expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing her features before she masked it with bravado. "It's nothing," she replied too quickly. "Just some old friends trying to catch up." "Friends?" The word tasted bitter on my tongue. "Are you sure?" "They looked like they meant trouble." She locked her gaze onto mine, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. "You don't understand, it's complicated." "Then help me understand." My voice rose with a desperation I hadn't intended to display. "You shouldn't have to carry this alone." There was a long pause, where the night around us seemed to exhale, and for a fleeting moment, I thought she might open up. But instead, she looked away, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her worn uniform. "I don't want to drag you into my life," she whispered, unwilling to meet my eyes. Suddenly, a faint sound broke the tension. The rumble of a car engine faded into the alley as headlights cut through the darkness. Maria stiffened, and her eyes widened. She had a look of pure panic as she turned to see a vehicle parked at the alley's mouth. The doors opened, and two men stepped out, their faces half hidden in shadows. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Maria, we need to go. Now." My instincts were screaming. I couldn't allow her to confront this head-on. Without hesitating, I grabbed her hand, feeling the warmth radiate from her skin. For a moment, she hesitated, then allowed me to pull her along as we raced back into the hotel. It felt surreal, as if we were trapped in a dream where every shadow was a threat. The grand foyer felt like a labyrinth now, each corner potentially harboring the men behind us. That we ducked into a storage room, quickly shutting the door behind us. The sound of our harsh breaths filled the cramped space. I turned to her, fear and determination swirling within my chest. What did they want? Who are they? Her face was pale, her eyes trembling with a mixture of what I could only assume was fear and a smattering of unease. "You shouldn't have come after me," she murmured, the weight of regret palpable in her voice. "That I couldn't just let you face them alone," I urged, stepping closer. "You're not alone anymore, Maria. Let me help you." But before she could answer, the door rattled violently, and suddenly, the tension exploded into a wave of raw panic. I held her close, blocking her from view. As the voices outside began to call her name, dark, menacing whispers that sent chills along my spine. "Maria. We know you're in there." One of the men shouted, his voice sending shivers down my spine. My heart thudded in my chest, panic rising with each word. They had found us, and I could feel the fragile thread connecting us teetering on the edge of despair. I had stepped into her world, but now ours was crumbling, and I was determined not to let her face the darkness alone. "Stay quiet," I urged, my whisper firm. "Let me think." And just as I attempted to formulate an escape plan, I heard the unmistakable sound of a familiar voice, one that sent realization crashing over me like a tidal wave. The second voice that pierced the harrowing silence was unmistakably that of my own brother. The pounding at the door intensified, reverberating through the cramped storage space like a drumbeat. My pulse raced, the chilling realization that my brother was somehow involved with the men hunting Maria twisted my stomach into knots. The weight of our history pressed down on me, an unyielding chain linking us back to all I had been trying to escape. "Why are they looking for you?" I whispered urgently, trying to keep my voice steady. Maria's gaze flickered from me to the door, fear etched into her features. "I don't know," she replied, her voice barely audible over the thudding. But I thought I was free from all of this. A part of me felt the earthquake of dread within her, swallowed by the same fear of past mistakes that loomed over my own head. Free from what? I pressed, but she shook her head, her lips still trembling as she suppressed her emotions. Just please, let's just wait. If it's them, the rest hung in the air unspoken, something heavy and laden with despair. The men continued to call out, their voices growing more insistent, more aggressive. Maria. You think you can hide? We're not done with you yet. One of them shouted, aggressive laughter punctuating the threat. I pressed my back against the door, heart hammering, trying to put my weight against it, as if to keep both of our worlds from crumbling into chaos. Just then, the idea took root, hoping against hope that maybe my brother was here searching for answers too, seeking redemption rather than revenge. Maybe I can talk to him, I thought, but the words sounded hollow even in my mind. No. You can't. Maria's eyes widened, a terror that felt almost tangible. If it's your brother with them, then you can't. Hell betray you. He's not doing this for you. My breath hitched at her words, the truth of them slicing through my resolve. Could I trust him? In that moment, every fragment of my past crashed around me. If you're trapped because of him, my voice faltered, then I have to try. She gripped my arm. Think carefully. Your brother's always played the long game. Don't let him lure you in. The room felt impossibly small, the darkness suffocating as the panic escalated outside. I gritted my teeth, trying to push down the cocktail of dread and determination. As if reading my thoughts, the rattling halted suddenly, just a heartbeat before the door creaked open slightly. I closed my eyes, shaking, adrenaline surging. The all-too-familiar voice that followed was edged with urgency. Let me explain, please, my brother called softly, his tone almost pleading. Brian. I dared to breathe out his name, the word heavy with skepticism. What are you? It's not what you think. This isn't my doing. His voice limped toward desperation. Just listen. They're looking for Maria, but not for the reasons you think. I exchanged a glance with Maria, anxiety rippling between us. I took a shaky breath as a small flicker of hope ignited within me. Could it be? Could my brother still be in some perplexing way trying to protect her? Open the door, I commanded, though a part of me begged to run. Just show me who you're with. That I could see the indecision etched across his face as he stood there, framed in the dim light, shadows casting a hauntingly familiar pallor. You have to trust me, please. They won't hesitate if they find you both alone. Before I could decide, the door swung the rest of the way open, revealing my brother standing at the threshold alongside one of the men I recognized from before. A rush of bitterness mingled with confusion coursed through my veins. Following closely behind them were two other figures, menacing and ready as ever, lurking just behind my brother like dark clouds awaiting a storm. Get back! I shouted, moving closer to Maria, whose arm I instinctively wrapped protectively around. We're not here to fight, my brother affirmed quickly, hands raised in a gesture of peace despite the hostilities outside. They want answers, Maria. We can buy you time. Let me help you. Just let me in. Before I could respond, the man beside him grunted, enough of this. We came to collect. Deliver the girl and you won't have to pay the price. There was a threat lacing his words, cold and unwavering, and I felt it resonate deep within me. Who do you think you are playing with? I retorted, wishing desperately that I could find the strength to protect her. She's not some pawn in a game. Exactly, Maria whispered, her courage flickering as her eyes darted between us. Who do you really serve, Brian? Listen, I didn't think they'd actually come for you, he said, trying to redirect the conversation. I don't care about your excuses. I screamed, the words tearing at me, combating the urge to trust him. You have no idea what damage has been done. Think of what's at stake. You're in danger, both of you. He gestured toward the looming presence of the other men. Against the mounting dread, Maria struggled to grasp the shifting dynamics, her breathing quickening. There was desperation in her eyes as realization settled in. We stood at the precipice of powerful choices. Could I believe my brother once again? What do you want from us? she asked, her voice fierce, trembling with uncertainty but fighting through the fear. The answer hung heavily in the air, thick with tension. Just as Brian opened his mouth to respond, the sound of sirens blared in the distance, cutting through the night. Panic surged through the men outside, their intent suddenly shifting from us to the potential chaos brewing beyond the barricading walls. "Go! Now!" One of them barked as they turned their attention to escape. "Maria, we need to move. Before they come back." I grasped her hand again, feeling her pulse racing under my touch. But just as we stepped closer, Brian's eyes caught mine, an unspoken plea that made my heart thud painfully against my rib cage. It was then Maria pulled away, staring at him with a mix of defiance and fear. "You've brought this trouble to my door, Brian. I will not run again. Not anymore." The door slammed behind us as we plunged into the storm of uncertainty once more, the weight of unanswered questions hanging palpably in the air, a haunting echo of the past and the fragile flicker of what might still lie ahead. The night air felt electric as the sirens drew nearer, their wailing an ominous reminder of the chaos that could erupt at any moment. I turned to Maria, her face a delicate canvas painted with fear and determination, the lingering echoes of our confrontation with my brother still reverberating in our minds. "Where do we go?" I asked, her hand still gripped tightly in mine. The world outside was suddenly much bigger, and each darkened corner seemed to harbor unseen dangers. "Anywhere but here," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hand. "We have to split up from him. They're coming for me, we can't let them catch us together. Are you sure? We can't just leave him. Do you really think he's on our side?" Maria cut me off, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and resolve. "He's not the person you've convinced yourself he is. I've seen the darkness in him before." The truth of her words settled heavily upon me. I could feel the jagged edges of my past pushing up against the fragile walls I had built around my heart, each memory a reminder of Brian's betrayals. Yet, despite everything, the bond of blood tugged at me, weaving a complex tapestry of loyalty and longing for reconciliation, but I wouldn't let that love blind me again. "Okay," I conceded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Well, find a way to get out of here. But I need you to stay close, no matter what." The thud of boots echoed ominously behind us, a reminder that our time was running out. As we darted through the maze of shadows, the world around us morphed into an anxious blur. Life had never felt so precarious, each step an uncertain gamble between safety and exposure. Suddenly, I caught a flash of movement behind a nearby dumpster. An old man crouched low, eyes wide with intrigue yet tinged with kindness, witnessing our desperate flight. I felt the desperate pull within me to reach out, to connect, if only for a moment in this chaotic world where we were nothing but pawns. "Please, help us," I pleaded as we skidded to a halt in front of him. A wave of desperation coursed through me, both for Maria and the unfamiliar man who could turn the tide in our favor. The old man assessed us for a moment, his lined face wrinkling as he sighed deep, an echoing sorrow emanating from him. "You need to go inside," he directed, nodding toward a weathered door at the back of the alley. "It'll keep you hidden until it's safe." Without a second thought, we hurried to obey, flinging ourselves through the door he held ajar. Inside, the walls were darkened, the air thick with dust and old memories. The man gestured for us to follow him further back. "This place hasn't seen much life in years," he explained in a raspy whisper, "but safety is what you need." He pulled a curtain aside, revealing a small room crammed with relics from lives left behind. "My granddaughter used to come here, leave me drawings and stories." He smiled softly, lost in his reverie. We exchanged glances, the weight of his kindness wrapping around us like a warm blanket in this chilling storm. "Why are you helping us?" Maria asked, her voice a mix of caution and gratitude. "Because it's the right thing to do," the old man replied. "Sometimes, people need help to escape their pasts. Our struggles are what connect us all. If I can shield you, even for a moment, then I will." Tears pricked at my eyes at his sincerity, a reminder of the small pockets of humanity still left in a world painted with shadows. We nodded as we stepped deeper into the dimness, taking solace in the faint glimmer of his kindness. Yet even while we found refuge there, the outside world was closing in. From the other room, we heard muffled voices bickering, stress palpable in the air. My brother's voice broke through the chaos, frayed and desperate. I have to find them. They can't just vanish. Mariah's breath caught, she was shaking her head, each word a silent plea for us to remain still. He can't find us. He can't. I held her close, wrapping my arms around her as fear intertwined with my protective instincts. What would happen if he did? The thought of his betrayal was as potent as the memories of when had last done so, surfacing like a dark specter from my mind. Minutes passed like hours as we stood together, barely breathing, waiting for the world outside to settle again. But just as the moment of respite began to stretch, we heard a loud crash, the sharp sound of wood splintering against metal. The old man's eyes widened in alarm. "They're here," he rasped. "Hide behind the crates quick. I'll buy you time." "No." I blurted out, feeling a deep-rooted surge of rebellion against the idea of putting him in danger. He had already shown us so much kindness. "Go," he urged, his voice an echo of authority. "You must escape. Protect her." He turned to face the noise, embodying a selfless valor that struck me deeply. And then, I made a decision that tethered me to an uncharted realm of consequence. "We can't leave him," I implored Maria, my heart racing as I wrestled within myself both loyalty and fear. But before a silent resolution could form, a new sound filled the air. A clash of voices and footsteps grew louder. My eyes flickered toward the door, and in that moment of rising dread a single thought crystallized in my mind. The past, like a storm, was coming back to claim its due, and we were standing right in its path, there. A voice shouted, clear and furious just outside the room. "We can't let them slip away. They're right here." I looked at Maria, our faces mirroring the turmoil within. The choice lay before us, the paths forked into an uncertain chaos. Together, we silently made a pact. We could not run, we could not lose the warmth of selflessness this old man had given us. But just as the door creaked ominously open, a chilling discovery awaited us on the other side. A shadow emerged that would change everything, a figure cloaked in dread and nostalgia, their eyes reminiscent of times long past. And with the unsettling familiarity came the weight of revelation that perhaps blood was not the only binding force. There was something much deeper connecting us all. "Hello, brother," Brian said, his voice as cold as the blade hanging at his side. The silence stretched like a taut string, vibrating with the unsaid words between us. The moment was freighted with exhaustion and anticipation. My body felt heavy, anchored by the weight of everything that had led us to this hellish point, and suddenly, Brian's face twisted into something unrecognizably a grotesque distortion of anger and desperation. "Where is she?" he demanded, his eyes scanning the room, filled with darkness and secrets. "I can smell her." Fear, every word dripped with malice, making my heart race painfully. Maria gasped, gripping my arm with a strength that belied her frailty. The old man's act of bravery was about to cost him dearly, and I felt the ground underneath me crumble as the memory of my brother's past transgressions crashed back into my mind like a wave, leaving me gasping for air. "Get away from him!" I shouted, the words escaping my lips before I could think better of them. The protective instinct surged within me, but standing between him and Brian felt no less than standing before a raging storm. Brian's gaze locked onto me, his expression morphing into an unsettling grin. "And what, exactly, do you think you'll do? You think you can shield him?" He took a menacing step forward, the angular movements reminding me of a predator sizing up its prey. And that heartbeat of uncertainty, I cast a furtive glance at the old man, fearing that any moment could snuff out the light he had ignited within us. "Please, just let him go. You don't have to do this," I pleaded, desperate to snatch a shred of humanity from Brian's hardened heart. "Too late for that, little brother," he sneered, his tone like ice piercing through the fabric of my defiance. "You're too late. You're always too late." The words were a physical blow, hitting harder than I'd anticipated, and I felt my resolve begin to falter under the weight of his anger and the haunting memories that swirled like restless spirits. Firmly, Maria tugged on my arm, her eyes urging me to reconsider any further rebellion. "We have to go," she whispered, glancing from me to the door, panic rising as she imagined an escape from this nightmare. But before we could make a move, Brian laughed, a sound that echoed eerily in the musty air. Run, then. But hiding won't save you. You're bound to me, out of blood and loyalty, it's a chain you'll never break. A chill snaked through my spine, tightening my throat, and as I faced my brother, a surge of conflicting emotions churned within me. I thought of the past, the good memories shrouded in the shadows of pain, and I felt tethered in a way I never wanted to be again. No matter how I tried, I knew the bond of brotherhood was not easily severed, no matter the cost. Enough. The old man's voice broke through the tumult, and I turned to see him stepping forward with unexpected courage. You'll not tarnish this young man's spirit with your twisted allegiance. He's made a choice, and you've no right to hold him captive. The audacity of his words sparked something dormant within me, a flicker of hope, blooming against the pervasive darkness threatening to engulf us. Brian, however, dismissively waved his hand as if to swat away a pesky fly. Anger flitted across his features and mingled with annoyance. You think you can save him? From what? From me? You're just an old fool. With a swift motion, he stepped forward, drawing the blade at his side. Every instinct screamed for me to act, but in that frozen moment, the past collided with the present again. Brian, don't do this. I urged, stepping between him and the man whose only crime was offering us sanctuary. Why do you keep protecting anyone but yourself? He spat, eyes burning with an intensity that threatened to swallow me whole. You've always been weak. It's time you learned that it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you're the one bound for the slaughter. My pulse quickened. I was teetering on a precipice with no clear way back. Every ounce of love, every memory of laughter and shared moments gnawed at me like a twisting vine, trying to pull me under. But I had to defend Maria. I had to defend my choice to stand tall. Suddenly, I thought of the old man's stories, the drawings of a little girl dreaming beyond the confines of four walls. I thought of the kindness he had shown us in our bleakest hour amidst the fading shadows. This bond of solidarity was fleeting, but powerful. Why can't we be more than this? A desperate plea slipped from my lips. We're brothers, Brian. We can end this cycle of hate and betrayal. It doesn't have to be like this. A flicker of something crossed his face, an unwilling reflection of uncertainty. My heart raced as I pressed on. Remember when we were young? When we promised each other that we'd always take care of each other. His grip on the knife trembled, just for a moment, but it was enough to crack open the door to reason. You're scared, he hissed, his facade of bravado beginning to slip. I am scared of losing you, losing us to this darkness, I said, my voice quaking. But I can't let you drown me in it. There's still a chance for redemption for both of us. For a heartbeat, the air was electric with the weight of possibility, but in an instant, that space was consumed by a storm of fury once more. Redemption? You think that's what this is? He thundered, then swung the blade closer, his anger igniting like a roaring fire, and then, as if the universe had chosen that very moment to cast a new card in our fates, the old man lunged forward, shouting something I couldn't quite comprehend, but amidst the chaos, a glint caught my eye, a flash of light laboring through the distant cracks of despair, a reminder that while storms breed darkness, the sun always rises again. In that instant of clarity, we were brought back to the precipice, the emotional weight threatening to topple us into an abyss, and just then, there was a sharp knock at the door. Open up. We know you're in there. The distracted look on Brian's face spoke volumes. But the kaleidoscope of tension had now shifted, and I felt the pull of fate swinging backward once more, pushing us headlong into another foreboding darkness. Run! I yelled, urgency snatching the words from my throat. But that same frantic urgency echoed through the back of my mind, aligning again with the lingering trepidation of our choices. Would we be brave enough to stand together against the tide of betrayal? Or were we to be swept away by the deluge of blood ties? There, on the edge of everything, I soon realized the answer was not ours alone to determine. The old man's voice rose amidst the clamor, this is not the end. Fight for each other, for kindness. Don't let fear decide your fate. But with each step everyone took toward fear and darkness, I felt an unforgiving tide rush forward, sweeping intention away and preparing for a showdown more profound. Brian! I shouted over the rush. I won't lose you. And there we stood, entangled in a moment of dread and hope beneath the weight of shattered dreams. What had begun with a choice to run could very well end in a battle to reclaim our bond, but at what cost? The walls seemed to pulse with the heavy breaths of conflict, as if the very air around us was charged with the weight of our history. Brian's hard stare bore into me, his grip on the knife wavering as the noise from outside crescendoed. The insistent pounding at the door bled urgency into the room, yet here we were, ensnared in our own tempest of emotions. Do you really think they care about you? Brian scoffed, a bitter edge tightening his voice. Blood runs deeper than any friendship birthed from your desperate need for companionship. But those words tugged at an unexpected thread within me, a thread that linked not just us brothers, but connected to Maria, and even to the old man who had dared to stand by us. In that moment, I could not just think of our fractured upbringing, with its echoes of abandonment and betrayal, but of the love I had found in the tiny crevices of life, the warmth of laughter shared over burned dinners, the sigh of relief that accompanied a friend's text, the fierce loyalty of someone who should have been lost to us. Every bond has weight, Brian, I murmured, my voice almost drowned by the clamor outside as desperation peaked. But we can be light, brother. We can lift each other instead of dragging one another down. A crack had formed in his facade, just a fragment of vulnerability glimpsed amidst the storm. With a swift motion, he pushed forward with the blade, but instead of lashing out, he tossed it aside. The clang echoed against the barren walls, a sound that took my breath away. What is this, some twisted game of redemption? You think you can save me? His voice dropped, laced with a raw honesty tinged with fear. The knock at the door came again, louder, rattling the frame like an unyielding omen. Let them in. I shouted, almost instinctively, as Maria clutched my arm tighter, fearing the repercussions of this reckless decision. Brian's eyes darted from me to the door, the battle within him fought by his own ambitions and desires. Don't you see? They'll take you from me. His expression shifted slightly, the thin fissure of hope threatening to solidify, only to be crushed beneath the weight of his past. I don't want to go anywhere without you. My voice held a weight of its own, an anchor in the restlessness of the moment. But as I stepped closer to him, he faltered, doubt creeping into the furrows of his brow, the first signal that he was grappling with something far deeper than hatred. That I end those rapid beats of doubt, Maria spoke. We're not the enemy, Brian. We're your family. This is just a moment, one of many where healing can begin. Her voice trembled but remained unwavering in its commitment to bridging the chasm between us. Before he could answer, the door splintered open, revealing a silhouette cut sharply against the dim light. It was a figure I recognized, a ghost from the past standing tall now, determination etched upon their features. Carmen. I gasped, the name hardly escaping my lips as the reality crashed down. She had been a light in our darkness, a girl from the neighborhood with an unwavering spirit and an infectious smile that always blacked out our shadows. But now that familiar warmth was dulled by maturity's hardships, her face marred with urgency. Get away from him. She shouted, her voice firm yet infused with worry, looking between Brian and me with an intensity that heightened the tension in the room. Carmen. I cried, relief almost collapsing my knees, but the resurgence of hope was swiftly intertwined with realization. She must have learned, known what we were entangled in, and chosen to step into danger to pull us through. Tension thickened like fog as I turned back to Brian. She's here for you too. We're all here to fight for you. My heart pounded as Carmen stepped cautiously into the room, her eyes unyielding. You don't have to do this alone anymore. You can choose, Brian. His gaze dropped to the floor, the storm inside him swirling like a fuming tempest. But if I choose you, I lose everything. Everything is not what you think it is, brother. These walls you've constructed don't have to be a prison. I watched as the possibility of choice shimmered on his features, each heartbeat drawing us closer to the truth of what lay before him. Brian's breath was ragged, the inner conflict palpable as he wrestled with the consequences of the bonds we had spent a lifetime forging in fear and hurt. They'll never forgive me for what I've done, what I am. I took a step closer, closing the distance, letting hope thread through my words. You are more than your mistakes, Brian. We're standing here, arms wide open, asking you to find the courage to break these invisible chains. The pounding of his heart echoed in rhythm with mine, but as quickly as light flickered, dark clouds rolled in. The shadows crept closer as the door behind Carmen burst wide open again, a group of determined figures entering, faces illuminated with righteous anger, those we had wronged, those who had come searching for retribution. The moment ground to a halt, suspended between the desperation to reclaim my brother and the impending chaos that threatened to swallow us whole. As the realization of our fractured family exploded around us, there was no escaping the fading hope that had danced so temptingly near. "Brian, you need to decide now." I shouted above the storm swirling closer, realization dawning upon me that our choice was no longer ours alone, but a pivotal moment teetering on the edge of fate. Would we leap together into the depths of darkness, or claw our way back toward the light? And just as the tide swelled menacingly around us, I saw a glimmer in my brother's eyes, the faintest flicker of a spark, a dying ember longing to blaze once more. The echoes of betrayal and blood were looming, and in that instant, I feared the very last fragment of our bond would slip away. The air stung with tension as the strangers converged, their faces twisted into masks of rage and resentment, reminding us painfully of the past we could not relinquish. I felt myself retreat into the shadows, a cold sweat forming as the realization sank in. We were standing on a precipice, each of us riding the waves of our history, some eager for vengeance, others desperate for reconciliation. "Step away from him," one of the newcomers shouted, hot anger lighting their features. I barely recognized Michael, the oldest of our childhood friends, his eyes darkened by years of hard-won battles. He had once promised to be a brother to Brian, protective and loyal, but mistrust had buried that promise deep within the ground. "Michael, please," I begged, trying to maintain the fragile thread of peace that hung in the room. "This isn't about vengeance anymore. It's about healing, about finding a way through this. Everything is about vengeance." He spat back, voice crackling with pain. "You think you can just saunter in here, after all that's happened, and convince him he can just walk away from his sins?" His accusation cut deeper than any knife, reminding me that the truth of our actions had left scars, ones we could not see, yet felt with every broken word. Carmen, catching on to the brewing storm, stepped alongside me, determination stiffening her shoulders. "You don't understand. Brian is fighting his demons, not trying to hide from them. We're offering him a chance to break free, not to sink deeper into this cycle of violence." "Break free?" Michael laughed bitterly. "Do you really think that's possible? He's lost just like all of us. Are you really telling me there's a way back?" The air swirled with despair, yet my heart screamed against it. "There is a way. If we fight together. We were once a family, before everything turned to ash. We can rise from those ashes, if only he believes." My voice wavered as I turned back to Brian, who stood like a statue, a fractured soul caught between paths. "You can choose to be more than the mistakes you've made. You can fight for something greater." The pounding in my chest matched the chaotic pulse around us. The feeling of being unwanted, of being pushed to the periphery, threatened to drown me. In that moment, I felt a tiny spark of defiance, a reminder that we had loved, once, that seeds of hope had grown in the soil of our shared laughter, even in dark times. "Brian," I whispered, "please choose to fight for us. For everything we've ever shared." My voice was low, trembling with the weight of a love that bound us like chains, yet carved through our struggles with tender strength. "We can write a new history. One where we're no longer haunted by our past but illuminated by our potential." Slowly, I reached out my hand, palm open, hoping he would see it not just as an offer, but as an invitation, a chance to rewrite our narrative. The room held its breath, a soft silence collapsing beneath the weight of our uncharted future, but at that moment, the door slammed open once more, and a figure stepped through, fierce and unexpected, a woman cloaked in shadows, eyes blazing with a hollow intensity. It was Elena, a wild spirit once filled with laughter and dreams that barely slipped through the cracks of our youth. Now, her presence was charged, alive with the scars of survival. "Are we really going to allow this circus to continue?" she drawled, voice steady yet brimming with sorrow. "While we stand here, looking for forgiveness, there's a fire raging outside that could consume us all if we don't decide whose team we're on." Alina's light had faded, but the fierceness in her gaze bore witness to the reality of our situation. "Are you going to stand here, or will we put our faith in something greater than ourselves? Because they're coming for whatever remains of the family we once called ours. They won't show mercy if we don't choose a side." That I could feel the weight of her words settling over us like a shroud. The time for deliberation waned like the faded light around us. We had lost our innocence, but now a deeper understanding flickered through the darkness. "Choose wisely," Brian Carmen murmured, her hand brushing against his arm, a simple gesture that illuminated the kindness we had all but forgotten. "You are not alone anymore. You have a choice. Let's be the family we want to be, not the one we've grown to fear." That I searched Brian's eyes, desperate to find even a hint of the brother I once knew, longing for reassurance amidst the chaos that unfurled. But his face wore a storm of emotions: fear, regret, longing, and a desperate need for acceptance, all danced in a mismatched rhythm, betraying the weight of his choice. And then, just as the tension finally reached its peak, the loud sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the palpable silence like a knife. My heart dropped. We're being hunted, and salvation was slipping through our fingers. "Time's up, brother," I whispered, the moment becoming irreversible. Would he cling to the darkness or grasp the fraying light offered by those standing by his side? As the ear-piercing chaos drew closer, a chilling thought washed over me: perhaps our bravest decision lay in tearing down the very walls that deluded us into thinking there was a way to escape without sacrifice. And in that moment, I was faced with a sinking dread, a realization that even if Brian chose to stay, the tides of fate could still wash him away. The room buzzed with uncertainty, hearts racing through unbroken bonds, and the fading flicker of hope that hung precariously above us. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to uncover the strings of fate, leading us towards the unraveling of our family or something more profound. With every thunderous step against the walls, the choices became clearer, and in the eye of the storm, I suddenly feared that whatever decision Brian made could shatter everything we thought we knew, perhaps pushing us further into shadows instead of towards the light. The sirens grew closer, the chaotic wails intertwining with the raw ache in my heart. My fingers trembled as I stepped back, caught in the sudden whirlwind of dread. The violent reality outside echoed into our fragile moment like a ghost, reminding us that the storms of our tumultuous past were not the only threats haunting us. "Brian," I said, desperation lending strength to my voice. "You have to decide now. We either fight together or let this fear tear us apart." That he looked between the faces around him, and I could see the battle raging within. I could feel the pulse of possibility surging beneath despair, a flicker of resilience waiting to be fanned into flame. He looked so lost, burdened by the weight of his past, yet standing on the threshold of something brighter. "Elena is right," Michael conceded, his voice distorted with urgency. "We can't run from what's coming, we need to face it." The tension slowly shifted as the others nodded, unity formed in the shadows of our discord. Yet even as we stood together in resolve, doubt crept in, a quiet whisper echoing in my mind. "Would it be enough? It's about survival now," Carmen murmured, her eyes locked onto Brian's. "Do you want to fight? Or let this consume you?" Each unanswered question blasted through the air, lingering like a heavy cloud, and then, he snapped. "What if I don't know how to fight anymore?" His voice cracked, a plea laced with anger. "What if all I've ever learned is to run?" It laid bare a truth that undoubtedly festered in all of us: the fear that the past had indeed chained our spirits. For a heartbeat, time suspended. Then, without thinking, I stepped closer to him, grounding myself in the reality of his turmoil. "You are not alone, Brian. We will find our way together, whatever that means. Whatever it takes." The swirling chaos outside seemed almost a distant echo, fading from importance in the face of our tales woven together over so many years. It was then that Brian's eyes held a flicker of recognition, a thread of possibility spun from desperation. Perhaps the road back towards each other began with acceptance, of flaws and fears and failures. "Together," he repeated, as if the very word unknowingly hung on the edge of liberation. Just when hope dared to reach the surface, the room was pierced by the sound of shattering glass. Instinctively, we all ducked, but I could feel Brian's muscles tense beside me, an instinct to protect turning his posture into something stronger. He turned toward me, the connection between us palpable like the static before a storm. His gaze transcended the fears we'd carried, bridging the chasms between forgiveness and regret. For us then, he said, a low determination igniting in his voice. Before another word could be spoken, the heavy thud of footsteps echoed from the hallway, a broken promise surging back to haunt us. "They're here," Elena hissed, her face illuminated with the resolve I had once admired in her spirit. As the door splintered under the pressure, we instinctively huddled together, a makeshift barrier against the chaos that sought to tear us apart. The air crackled not just with fear but a visceral sense of unity. It felt electric, alive with the possibilities of our collective strength. "Now!" I shouted, motioning for everyone to take cover, adrenaline coursing through me as we prepared for what was to come. But as we positioned ourselves, I caught sight of Brian standing unwavering. It wasn't fear that cast across his face anymore but something deeper, perhaps the first ember of defiance worming its way through the layers of despair. He stepped forward, a beacon amid the encroaching storm, turning to face the door like a soldier ready for battle. "That we fight for each other," he declared, a tone of unexpected resilience in his voice. "And for what we can become." With those words echoing in our hearts, the door erupted open, and shadows spilled forth, but it didn't matter. In that moment, I realized that whatever transpired next would not just be about survival but the fierce grip of survival itself, the unconventional promise of love forged in the ashes of chaos. Then a figure appeared through the darkness, silhouetted against the dim light. Something flickered in my mind, the face was familiar, and shock washed over me like a cold tide. My breath hitched. That it was someone I thought I'd never see again. Someone from our past, a living ghost resurrected amidst our turmoil. My heart raced, and a tremor of recognition filled the air. "Sarah," I whispered, disbelief staining my voice as the room fell silent, uncertainty transforming into a tumultuous swell of emotions. Everything we had fought for hung in the balance, her presence a reminder that sometimes, the ties of love could forge paths we never expected, leading us toward new battles and revelations we were yet to face. As Sarah stepped into the dim light of the room, a hesitant smile hovered on her lips, but the shadows in her eyes betrayed the weight she carried. Time had sculpted her features, and the years stretched like a bridge between us, filled with untold stories and unhealed wounds. I held my breath, desperately searching for some semblance of the girl I once knew, the one who used to laugh freely amidst the chaos of our youth. "Sarah," I breathed, testing the name on my tongue, trying to bridge the chasm that had formed in her absence. The others remained motionless, caught in a tide of disbelief, as if we were all suspended in a moment that danced between past and present. "Eleni," she replied softly, her gaze flickering to each one of us, her old friends. "I came back when I heard there was trouble, thought I could help." Her voice wavered, raw and uncertain, as though each word was a small yet heavy step on soft ground. That I, in the charged atmosphere, I felt the ice of our reunion cracking just enough to allow warmth to seep in. But I couldn't ignore the trepidation gnawing at my heart. Help? From what? I searched her eyes, desperate for clarity, for a glimpse of safety amidst the encroaching storm. A sound echoed outside, rippling through the silencio, a reminder that danger remained just beyond our fragile sanctuary. The sirens had faded into a hushed pace, only to be replaced with the guttural growls of chaos. Reality pulled hard against that glimmer of hope, and I fought against the torrent of doubt that threatened to drown me. "I saw what happened, what they're planning," she continued hastily, each syllable a hurried confession. "I thought maybe, just maybe, if I could reach you, by coming here." "You could have been hurt," Michael interjected, tension tightening his voice as he shifted uncomfortably, torn between concern and frustration. "That I know," Sarah snapped, standing taller as if to withstand the onslaught of fear around us. "But listen to me. I've seen things. I don't know how long we have, but we need to move. There's more than just this storm, more than just the wreckage outside. They're coming for you all, and we can't afford to let them catch us unprepared." My heart raced in tandem with the gravity of her words. Flashes of our shared past pressed around us, our laughter, our reckless decisions, and the moments of betrayal that had carved deep grooves in our memories. I felt a churning beneath the surface, a reminder of the bonds that could either shatter or strengthen in the wake of adversity. "What do you know?" I demanded, stepping forward, my feet moving with purpose as I sought to pull her into our circle of trust, however fragile it might be. That I found out someone inside the force, someone I thought I could trust, a mole, feeding information to the enemy. Her voice trembled, the truth heavy on her tongue. And they're targeting Brian. They think he knows something, that he has the answers they need. We cannot let them take him. All at once, the room spun with realization, a wheel of despair threatening to splinter our united front. The fragmented past, the anger, and the regrets loomed over us like an unreachable sky. Brian's face went pale, the light of hope snuffed away by an all-consuming fear. "No," he murmured, backing away slightly as if the very walls could close in on him. "I can't." "Not again." Carmen stepped forward, a fire igniting in her chest. "Brian, listen to me. This is our chance. We need to fight back together. You're not the only one they've targeted, they've come for all of us." "Carmen's right," I added, heart racing, searching for that thread of determination we had just begun to weave together. "Your past may haunt you, but it does not define who you are today. It can fuel you. Let it." Brian looked at us, his eyes searching ours like a drowning man reaching for solid ground. Suddenly, the urgency echoed behind us, the heavy thud of more footsteps approached, a reminder that we were running out of time. Sarah took a step closer to Brian, her hand reaching toward him. There was something electric in her touch, an acknowledgement of the bond they once shared, a lifeline amidst the turbulence threatening to engulf us. "Please," she said gently, desperation laced in each syllable. "You need to trust me. Trust all of us. We're stronger together than we are alone." In this moment, the gravity of choices weighed heavily on Brian. But as I glimpsed the flicker within him, the embers of defiance dancing at the edges of his fear, I realized that he longed for connection, for strength in numbers, just as much as we did. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about standing firm against the storm, defying the voices that had always told us we would fail. "Together," he finally breathed, letting the word settle on the air. But as a sense of unity began to knit its way back to us, a final collision rang out, an earth-shattering explosion that shook the ground beneath us and sent shadows skittering at the edges of our fortress. The door splintered completely, flying off its hinges. For a split second, I thought it might tear us away from our resolve and swallow us whole. But it didn't matter, because as the dust settled, standing there at the threshold, was someone unexpected. A figure cloaked in darkness, their expression unreadable, the truth hidden beneath an iron facade. "You're all out of time," the newcomer said, a chilling smile spreading across their lips. And in that moment, as I looked from Brian to Sarah to the looming figure, betrayal snaked around me like venom, and I understood that trust was a fragile web, easily severed by the weight of our past mistakes. The tides of love and loyalty churned beneath us, a battle brewing that none of us were prepared to face. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on us, the air thick with tension as the shadowy figure leaned against the doorframe, blocking our escape. Time itself seemed to freeze, the reality of our situation settling like a dark fog engulfing our shaken spirits. For a heartbeat, I felt the fragile thread of our unity as tenuous as spun glass, ready to shatter beneath the strain of old wounds and unspoken fears. "Who are you?" Brian demanded, his voice trembling with a mixture of defiance and desperation. The flood of memories and mistakes writhed within me, a reminder that shadows found us no matter how hard we fought to break free. The newcomer smirked, the dim light catching the glint of a knife strapped to their waist. "That's irrelevant," they retorted, pushing off from the door. "What matters is that your little reunion is about to go up in flames," they added coldly, their eyes gleaming with a malevolence that sent chills racing down my spine. In that moment, it struck me that we were at a crossroads, the coil of fate tightening around our throats. The remnants of family, trust, hurt, and love were contained within these crumbling walls. I glanced at Brian, the flash of fear writhed in his gaze, an echo of the boy I had once shared secrets and warmth with, now damn near lost. The old scars between us wanted to rear their heads, whispering poisonous thoughts that threatened our resolve. No, this is our choice. I found myself shouting before anyone could object. We faced this together. We fought for this moment. Every one of us holds a piece of this connection. It was raw and visceral, the words spiraling forth from deep within my soul. We will not cower, we will not be broken again. The fire of my determination flickered, and with it came the admiration and pride for the others standing beside me. Carmen took a step forward, her presence fierce, ready for battle. Your games won't work on us anymore. We've survived worse. We're no longer the fragmented pieces you think we are. The figure inhaled sharply, as if Wed caught them off guard. A crack of doubt crossed their face momentarily. For a split second, I saw a glimmer of concern light their eyes. And yet, the threat loomed closer at hand, darkness returning to their features. You think you have a choice here? It's too late. You're entangled in this web, remember? That's where you're wrong, Sarah interjected with unexpected confidence, her voice steady. You may have pulled the strings, but in the end, this is our story, our choice, not yours. And at that moment, I felt a collective heartbeat of unity surge through us, as though the air itself was charged with the strength of our resolve. As if in a choreographed dance, we shifted closer to one another, our defenses woven into a solid wall of unwavering support. We could shape the narrative ourselves. It's time to reclaim what's ours, I murmured, determination coiling beneath the surface, bracing for whatever was to come next. Together. The figure hesitated, glancing at the doorway behind them where shadows danced menacingly, the past closing in like a storm. They may have thought they held the power, but so did Web, arid beneath pain and memories, but still pulsing with life, ready to rise. Brian took a deep, steadying breath, facing our intruder. We know our pasts won't vanish overnight, but we're not defined by them anymore. You can't take that from us. My heart raced violently as I witnessed him step closer, a small crack of hope finally revealing the light I had believed was lost. But whatever power the figure thought they wielded, they couldn't control the momentum building in this room, the determination shimmering in our eyes. It shattered their facade. With a chilling glare, they lunged forward, brandishing their knife as if they thought us foolish enough to back away. Instinct kicked in as we spread out, hearts pounding, preparing for the inevitable chaos about to ensue. Yet somehow, the very thought of standing arm in arm against this darkness ignited a spark of courage flickering in our chests. This is a moment we define, not cower from. My voice was stronger now, emboldened by the connection we had forged, by the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood awakening from the ashes. As confusion etched itself across the intruder's face, the air sang with possibilities, universes spun upon the precipice of danger, hope dancing between lives intertwined not just by blood but by choice. My heart soared with the strength of all those beside me, each fiercely loyal soul refusing to let darkness claim us again. They launched at Brian, rage spilling forth, but he was no longer the frightened boy lost in shadows, but a man resolute in his decisions, arms unfolded to embrace whatever power surged within him. Carmen moved in tandem with him, her own spirit unwavering as she stepped into the fray with a ferocity I hadn't seen before. What will you fight for? I called, the answer echoing through our clash, each word burning with raw emotion. We fought not as fragmented pieces but as unyielding warriors refusing to be defined by the ghosts of yesterday. In a flurry of movement, I dove in beside them. We were stitched together by love, tenacity, and the simple, sheer will of wanting to reclaim our narrative. The presence of the figure faltered, their darkness wavering against the tide of our reclaiming light. Through the chaos and the clanging, I realized, this conflict was more than physical, it was a final breaking free from the chains of our shared past. Together, we outshone the storm, and as the blade missed my side, it solidified what we had fought for, the promise of resilience and kinship through the darkest of nights. And just as hope surged through our battle, the dark figure staggered, their presence unmistakably weakened. You don't know what you're doing. You think you can save this? But we no longer sought saving, we sought healing in the fires of unity. This is our story, Brian said, voice resonating with newfound power. And we'll forge ahead, no matter the cost. The chaos around us began to fade as, together, we pushed forward into the light, huddling into a collective fist, a comet blazing through the cosmic dark, melding our souls into a singular force of will. In that moment, we found a voice stronger than regrets and buried pain, a voice heralding the dawn of something new. It was not just about survival anymore, it was in the act of standing together, leaning into hope, and casting away the filaments of betrayal. It was the blooming recognition that we were not just survivors, but warriors ready to reclaim our past, not in bitterness but in acceptance of what we could become, and as the figure was driven back, defeated by the uprising we had forged from the depths of our reckoning, I felt a profound peace wash over me. Perhaps this was that momentary rebirth, a renewal where love and heartbreak intertwined, defining paths steeped in all we had ever been. And as I turned to face my friends, my family, Brian, Sarah, Carmen, and the old man wrapping us in the warmth of his kindness, I felt my heart soar. Today, we didn't just fight against the storm but emerged triumphant, carrying our shared humanity like a beckoning light ahead. Together, I whispered, meeting their eyes, feeling at long last that could be enough. Together was where we found strength, where love broke darkness and stretched beyond the horizon, a new dawn illuminating the pages of our story, waiting to be written. In that embrace, our ties solidified like the sun rising anew, a declaration of loyalty, love, and a fearless heart that no shadow could consume, and as the remnants of chaos faded behind us, I knew forged in this moment, we would create a legacy far beyond the scars of our past, one that would sing of hope, joy, peace, and love in its most radiant form. With every heartbeat echoing the reality of our bond, I whispered to the universe, ready to take each step forward, let them come together, we will rise.